to the Undercovers Football Podcast chat show thingy. I'm Ben, along with Connor and Paul, as always, and we got a lot to talk about. AFC conference standings are shaping up. The one seed is unfortunately looking like it's starting to slip away, but there is still hope. But the Bills more than likely will have to win out and get some help because the Chiefs now are 2 games ahead of them with 4 games remaining. I mean, obviously anything is possible. The Chiefs still have to play Pittsburgh. They still have to play Denver, which that game was very close the first time in Arrowhead, and they still will have to play Houston. So maybe I said Houston twice. I don't know, but they only have to play Houston once, just to clear things up if I did say Houston twice. But gentlemen, big show tonight. The college football playoff, the new expanded format is finally here. There is a little bit of controversy on that, which we'll get into in a little moment. But, you know, Bills coming off of a loss, but 7-game win streak. All good things have to end. You'd rather have them lose now than in the playoffs. So it's nice to maybe get another loss out of the way. And, hopefully maybe they'll have another 7-game or more win streak ahead of them. Oh, no, they could win 7.
Well,
if they get
win
one,
7,
yeah, they win 7 straight and
if
get
they
the
win
1
7
seed.
straight, they would get the Super Bowl. If they
Well,
don't get the 1 seed, it would have to be 8.
Correct, but they could, if they do get the 1 seed, yes, they could do another 7 straight, which, we've seen them do this season, so it's definitely possible.
Wouldn't that be the best thing ever?
Oh, it would be amazing.
That would be great. Wouldn't have to worry,
And
right?
we'll get into that Bills game in a bit. I mean, there's obviously a lot of, I think, overreaction, myself included, but speaking of
that's
overreaction,
the mainstream Bills Twitter.
It is.
God,
I mean,
relentless.
After every loss, the season's over. We all know the drill.
Yep.
So the
Season's
season
over,
was over on Sunday, right? But we'll see what happens in Detroit, which should be. I mean, if Sunday's game wasn't the game of the year, I mean, this Sunday's game has potential to be between 2 of the best teams in football. Going head to head, obviously the Bills have a lot to still play for. So do the Lions. They're trying to secure the 1 seed as well. I mean, they're more so in the driver's seat. But let's get into our quick takes and setting me up for a doozy here. Should the college football playoff change the format to allow more emphasis on strength of schedule? So this sounds like a pro Bama question, and after seeing the official playoff picture, I think based on the season, the committee, for maybe the first time ever, finally got it right. SMU deserved to get in. You can't penalize a team for making the conference championship game. Now, there's maybe more controversy. Should there be automatic bids? Because Clemson was, 17th, and they got a automatic bid by winning the ACC chip. But, these conference championship games at the end of the day do have to mean something, in my opinion. Now, if there were more future changes to the playoff format, what I would actually advocate for is let's do it more like Division II, Division III, and FCS.
Oh. Interesting.
I believe let me just double check. I believe there's 24 teams in those playoffs. So, or no, there's 28 actually in Division 2. So, I mean, why not just have the top 25 plus, 3 at-large bids make up the college football playoffs? I mean, we want more football, not less. And you could still have them be as bowl games, so the TV networks still get their money. You still can have the Pop-Tart Bowl, the Capital One whatever bowl, like all these meaningless bowl games. Maybe they can finally actually be important games for once. But I don't think it should put more emphasis on strength of schedule, because all that's going to do is make it into a Big Ten/SEC invitational where literally every team are from the SEC or Big Ten, which I'm definitely opposed to, because, I mean, I get it. The SEC and Big Ten are the class but there still should be other teams that have an opportunity to make a run. And I mean, we see what Arizona State and Boise State have done this season.
Yeah.
You know, they can maybe cause some chaos in the tournament. I know obviously Georgia is probably one of the favorites along with Oregon, but they're playing with a backup quarterback. I mean, we know the committee didn't follow precedent with a conference winner with a
where's the
backup
precedent?
quarterback
Where's the
making the
precedent?
playoffs, but it is what it is.
I'm
But
gonna push just a slight pushback on the
SEC
Georgia
double
thing.
standard.
It's a different format than last year. They got the auto bid,
I know,
so
I know.
it's
Nobody
like
I'm
cares.
not
they,
being
they just couldn't
completely
just.
serious, but me and Connor have to get our jabs in at
Yeah,
the
nobody
committee
cares. Double
about
standard.
last year. But
Double
yeah, that's
standard.
my
I'm
quick
still
take.
bitter.
I think the new format is good, except I would like more teams. But I think if the playoff goes well for a couple years, there's definitely the opportunity to add more teams and have even more fun, with this thing.
You just don't want to add too many and have the first round of the playoffs be basically eliminating teams that should have never been there in the first place. I would.
I mean, if
I'd
you have a good
understand.
season, win your conference, and go on a run, I think you should still have a shot. Because who knows, you might finally see some chaos in the college football world. As far as
we all
the
love the
postseason
chaos.
goes.
Massive upsets all the time in March Madness. That's where I kind of like interested in see if they will expand it. But I don't think it needs
Let's
like
just
a
have a
seismic.
full 64 team playoff,
my
like
God.
March Madness. that
would
would be
be
something.
That'd be a little nuts. I don't know if I could keep up with all of that. I can barely keep up with it now as is. But
That
let's
would
actually.
run right into like the midpoint of like college basketball season, and then college basketball basically just gets no viewership into like
Yep.
March Madness.
Yep. But let's actually move
But
on to the next quick take because you
yeah,
have set me up to get canceled with this quick take. Like
Oh, I'm ready
I
for
read
it.
I read it and I'm like, Paul, are you trying to get me canceled? But the quick take that you had was
how
how
far
far
can the
can the Chiefs
Chiefs?
go with all the one-score games they've won? Oh, I don't even know really how to describe this Chiefs team anymore. You can't call them the 2020 Steelers because even the 2020 Steelers were able to win more than their fair share of those 11 games when they went 11-0. They won more than their fair share of those by more than one score. The 2022 Minnesota Vikings, I mean, yeah, they also won. They haven't won as many games by more than one score, but they set the standard first when they went like 13-3 or 12-4. I forget what their actual record was, or 14-3. But the same thing's happening with the Chiefs. I mean, they were in a dogfight with the Carolina Panthers. They were in a dogfight with the Las Vegas Raiders. And just last week, we saw they were in a dogfight with the Chargers. I mean, this team is going to run out of luck at some point. And with how their schedule is, it can't last forever. I feel like if they get the wrong matchup in round one, like if they happen to somehow get the Chargers again, I don't think it's going to end that well for them. I think
Yeah.
if they even if they manage to draw, say the Ravens fall that far and the Chiefs have to go face them round one because the Bills have the 1 seed, that might not be the easiest matchup for them either.
Let's.
I don't know. I mean, there's plenty of things that could happen. I just don't see them winning any more than one playoff game.
Let me just say one thing to your point about that. It is very difficult to beat a team 3 times in a season.
Mm-hmm.
So that Chargers matchup could be a bad matchup for them. But
Potentially.
also, if you look at how things stand right now, say Pittsburgh wins their division, finishes the 3 seed, and Buffalo ends up as a 2 seed.
Yep.
Round 2, the Bills would avoid both the Chiefs and Ravens, which would mean if say the Ravens were to hypothetically win, which they would, have beaten Houston in that scenario. Let's just say Houston's a 4 seed. That would be a very interesting rematch. Houston, Baltimore, and Kansas City. We all know how that game ended earlier in the season when they were a toe.
Yep.
a toe away from potentially losing that game on the final play of the game. But let's now move into our Bills talk. Obviously, Bills lose a heartbreaking game. Josh Allen,
Another one.
yes, it seems like these games of the year, the Bills are always on the wrong side of. You think of the 13-second playoff game, the Eagles game last year, the Vikings game a couple years ago, and now this game. They can never pull out these really back and forth games. And I guess maybe you could even throw the Tampa Bay Bucks game a couple years ago too, which was another overtime. This one almost went to overtime, but it quite didn't because well, number one, Haversack missed the extra point, and then McDermott had a McDermott moment late in the game and
Oh God.
called a timeout with a minute left. And I know the clock was running. I think you could maybe put more so blame on Joe Brady for not passing it on first down. I think you should wait for second down before you try the tush push. Because they probably knew what was coming. And this actually leads into our first topic tonight. What was the worst coaching blunder? And obviously the other one I would assume was not declining. It was what it would have been a 4th and 7, 4th and 9 on that. The Rams finally got a holding call for the first time all game called against them, and McDermott accepted the penalty. And then we all know the sequence that ensued after that. The Rams got a big chunk play. Sean McVay rolled the dice on 4th and 5, and they got a first down. And then they ended up scoring a touchdown to make it a 9-point game at that point. So between the two, the timeout with a minute left or not declining the holding penalty, what would you say was worse? I would say it's not declining the holding penalty. There's a chance the Rams still go for it, but it's a 4th and 7 versus a 4th and 5. And even if McDermott did call a timeout, or didn't call a timeout there, the clock was running. 10 seconds probably goes off at the minimum. And the Bills probably would only have gotten 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, if they had kept all three timeouts, because you figure 10 seconds goes off the clock. It probably goes to the 50-ish seconds mark, maybe 45. You got 3 timeouts, but the Rams run 3 plays. They'll probably be able to burn 12, 15 seconds there. And then you got the punt. And then you have the ball back with 20, 30 seconds versus the Rams bleeding out all the clock. But I would have made them go for a longer 4th down, because a 4th and 7 or 4th and 8, whatever it would have been, is a lot more difficult than a 4th and 5. And I get it. You want to back them up to potentially out of field goal range, but the offense was cooking. Even if they attempt a field goal, the way the offense was playing, they did end up scoring a touchdown on the next drive. Like, I don't think the Rams would have kept the Bills out of the end zone. Say they do make a long field goal, that puts the advantage to the Bills, because the Bills can just run some clock, maybe force the Rams to use some of their timeouts late in the game and try to score a touchdown, with maybe 20 or 30 seconds left if they correctly execute the final drive.
Perhaps. I mean, I just think that there was no real way the Bills were ever going to win that game with just how the game felt. Like, everything that could go right for the Rams did. A lot of that was Matthew Stafford throwing those balls up into the air that were just unbelievably impossible catches that the receivers still made. That toe drag with Puka Nacua, I mean, that one, there was no way, and he just catches it. I mean, that was the moment when I was like, yeah, I don't think that it's in our good nature to win this game. And then the blocked punt that was returned for a touchdown that no one seems to talk about, that really did it. And what I think is really hilarious, it had to be Hunter Long, the Dolphins legend Hunter Long, to get that touchdown. That just, when you know who Hunter Long is, and I was on a call with a Rams fan, my best friend's a Rams fan, during the game, he was like, Dolphins legend Hunter Long just put the game on ice. And I'm just like, man, yeah. But real question, How is Matthew Smiley still here?
Well, we'll get into
I
that
mean,
in our
it's
next topic.
Why
But
do you think I said it?
well, let's hear Paul's answer on the coaching
Oh,
decisions.
okay.
so
Coaching
Good enough.
blunders.
here's
Yeah, let's
my
hear it.
issue. I feel like, as I'm just sitting here listening to you two just for a second, I just had a new
Just
thought,
yep.
new idea. It's just, I feel like a lot of the issues in this game really doesn't really go on McDermott. It kind of goes on the two play callers. If you look at it this way, you go to that penalty that he decides to accept and push the Rams backwards. That was a 3rd and 17. Why in the world are we playing soft zone on 3rd and 17
Why
to
were we
allow
playing
them to
zone
pick
in
up
general?
12 yards
That was the
for a
entire
chance?
game, though. Like they didn't.
Like,
That was the
to
entire
me,
game
I
they were
don't feel
doing that.
like, to me, I like, that's a decision I like. McDermott accepting that penalty, pushing them back out of field goal range while you're down 3. It's up to the play caller to put the defense, to put the Rams in a situation where they don't have to think about going forward on that 4th down. Instead of 4th and 5, you could have pushed them to 4th and, I don't know, 10, and have them pick up 7 yards, and it's 4th and 10, and then they're punting away, and the Bills have the football back to march down the field. Like you said, Ben, I don't think the Rams were going to stop the Bills anyway on that next drive.
So it
So
sounds like your bigger issue was the timeout then.
I mean, that's my big
I
issue
liked
too.
I liked
Why are
my
you
bigger
calling
issue
it?
was the timeout. Yes.
Okay.
Why are you
That's
burning
where
a timeout? Like that just got on my nerves
I
too.
go. I
And
like
and
the
this
accepting the penalty.
this leads into the next topic. Can this coaching staff be trusted? Short answer, maybe. Longer answer, we'll get into it. But Connor mentioned Matthew Smiley. Definitely not. Year in, year out, we've seen him make some epic special teams blunders. And if you think about it, the game ultimately came down to that block punt. Um,
Yeah.
if the long snapper, someone help me out.
Reed
Reed
Ferguson.
Ferguson.
Thank you. I almost said Garrison Sandborn. That was the
I
previous
almost
long
said
snapper.
Blake Ferguson too.
Yeah, okay, well, perfect. If Reed Ferguson doesn't get blown up, and they can make
Yeah,
a
that was
block and
bad.
at least get the punt off, even if it's not a pretty one, that saves 7 right there. Now, for all we know, the Rams could have scored a touchdown on that ensuing drive, so that could be a moot point. But the thing is, we've seen the special team struggle, especially in kick coverage too at times this season.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag. Bobby Babich obviously is a first-year coordinator, and it seems like he made some adjustments, but the adjustments he made, he didn't push the right buttons at that time, and I get it. People can say it's an outlier, but this is also, if you look at the Rams season, this is a major outlier game for that offense. That offense has the pieces to click, but for some reason, against even New England and Miami, division rivals who should on paper have worse defense than the Bills, this offense didn't click to this degree. I get it. The receivers are one of the best duos in football, but the Bills were supposed to have one of the best corner duos in football. And Rasul Douglas might finally be showing his age. I made a post on Sunday's game which said, this is the game you don't want to have your best man corner as a healthy scratch, and that is Kaiir Elam. Like, in case the Rams were burning us, why not put Kaiir Elam in there to jam Puka at the line with his press coverage or trail him and at least get him frustrated? Because it seemed, Douglas couldn't handle him. Benford made a couple plays, but he had good coverage, but just wasn't able to make the play on the ball at times, it seemed like. And they did call a kind of a ticky-tack penalty on Jamar Ingram that they didn't call on the Rams on the Bills' last drive when Amari Cooper was getting his jersey tugged. So, I mean, that would be in my opinion, it could be a Babish thing, but I also think McDermott has more control on the game day roster. So obviously we know the game management we have our concerns about, but also Joe Brady. Why the flip did we only run the ball 5 times with James Cook that game when the week before he was cooking a good Niners defense. I get it. They were down some major pieces, but we didn't even try to establish the run. That was a complete Ken Dorsey game plan. You remember Jameis was low-key cooking against Denver, and obviously he had more turnovers than Josh did this game, but he passed the ball 58 times. And I know Josh didn't pass it that many times, but it sure felt like he threw the ball damn near 50 60 times in that Rams game. And the times he didn't drop back, he just scrambled and took off, which he was able to get positive yardage off of. But where was James Cook? Where was Ty Johnson, who's been a weapon in the run game and housed a big screenplay, which was a great play design, by the way. So I do have to give Brady his flowers when he makes a play call like that. But come on, it just seemed like it was Josh versus everyone. Let's forget we have this great O line. Let's forget we have this great, run game. So I'm not going to let Brady off the hook. I'm not going to let Babbage off the hook, even though he is a first-year play caller. But we haven't seen what Babbage does in the playoffs and how veteran offensive minds scheme against him. We saw how McVay did in the regular season, one of the best play callers in football. Well, guess what? In the playoffs, you'll potentially have to go against Jim Harbaugh. You'll potentially have to go against Sean Payton, who's got that Denver team playing very scrappy. And, I mean, the way Bo Nix has been playing, I have my doubts if we'd be able to shut him down with how the defense looked on Sunday. I know we probably do, but, I mean, this Sunday's game is going to be a big test for this defense with Ben Johnson and those Lions weapon group, because I would argue the Lions have better weapons and a better line than the Rams. So that should be the Bills' biggest test of the season. And it could be true. Maybe the Bills, it was a trap game. They were looking ahead, but I have my concerns with this coaching staff.
Well, I mean, I'll actually say that in terms of the Lions compared to the Rams, the Lions definitely have the better offensive line. I don't think they have the better receiving core than the Rams do. I think Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua combined are way better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And the name of their other one just slipped my mind.
Jamison Williams. He's having a heck of a season.
That's right.
And he was suspended 3 games. So
yeah, I remember that. That's why I didn't remember who he was.
I would just say, look at St. Brown and Jamison Williams' separation charts and their catch point charts. I mean, they're both having better seasons than Cooper Kupp. And
Cooper Kupp's been hurt though.
But so Jamison Williams has been suspended.
True. I mean,
and I would make an argument, as good as Kupp and Nacua are, I think St. Brown might be the best out of that whole group. And it's whoever's lined up against him is going to be in for a challenge, because he is so good at finding his spot in zones and after the catch. Like, it's going to be a challenging game.
Oh, for sure. It is. I'm actually a whole lot more concerned about their ability to keep Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery contained than I am God bless, English is hard today, than I am about keeping their receivers contained. It's going to be a whole lot more of a challenge to keep those two from running all over us, considering that Kyron Williams kind of had his way with us, along with, I mean, even if you look back a week ago, Jordan Mason had his way with us too. Once we figured out how to stop him in the snow, though, it was over. So we have to figure out how to keep those two contained to where they're not running all over us. Because if what's funny is I actually had forgotten about the James Cook stat line until you mentioned it, Ben. And my immediate first thought was, when did we hire Mike McDaniel to run this offense? Because that was an exact Mike McDaniel replica moment right there when they went down early and they stopped running the ball. He did the same thing. He literally just said, okay, I mean, I get it, though, when you're down multiple scores and you got to try to come back, you can't really run the ball because you got to get it downfield fast. But in the beginning of the game, they didn't even really try to establish the run. I mean, Josh Allen was the team's leading rusher. That's just him being Superman when, I mean, you just didn't even try really to get James Cook and Ty Johnson going more effectively. So at the end of the day, you have to figure it out against the Lions. and you've got to establish a run game. You just can't, keep thinking that only passing the ball is going to win these games, because they're not. You got to establish the run and keep the Lions' potent offense off the field. Their defense is their weakness. With Aiden Hutchinson being hurt for the remainder of the year, probably won't be back until the Super Bowl if they get there. Their defense is weaker than it was at the beginning of the season. So we have to take advantage of that. And you got to also remember that this is any given, football is any given Sunday. I mean, they've survived a dogfight with the Colts. That's something to think
Who did?
about. The Lions. They survived
Was it a
a dogfight.
dogfight?
Yeah. Yeah, it really kind of was.
I don't think it was.
Colts played them pretty hard until the very end.
They did, but they kept the Colts out of the end zone the whole game, so
They
that's
did.
pretty significant.
They did,
Paul,
but they definitely didn't.
let's hear about your concerns or lack of concerns if you have them with this coaching staff.
Knowing Paul, I think he's got more concerns than we could list out here.
Probably.
The Bills, when Josh Allen goes for 400 yards in a single game, he's 4-5 in those games. So he's under 500 when he has a combined total of 400 yards in a single game. Flip to Patrick Mahomes when he goes 400 or more.
He's probably
in a
undefeated,
game.
right?
He's 14-2
Wow.
in those games. You can't allow Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in this game, to sit under 500 yards. Sit under 500 when he goes for over 400 yards in a single game.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't let that happen. And that really just shows how bad the Bills are still in one-score games, even though they're 27-23 in the Josh Allen, Sean McDermott era. When these two guys are together, they're 27-23 one-score games. It has to be better. And even though they've only played 5 one-score games this year, they're 3-2 in those games. Maybe it's just the Bills were lack of confidence last week, or they were just looking ahead.
That's kind of how I thought it was when I watched the game back. That's how I felt.
They just looked flustered. They didn't look prepared enough. They didn't look like the same old Bills that we saw in the last 7 games.
Let's talk about the defense, because that's something that I don't think many people had a lot of concern with, but based off of a couple games against two of the more potent offenses they played this season, they've allowed almost 80 points if you combine the Ravens game and the Rams game.
Mm-hmm.
I think they gave up 35 to the Ravens and 44 to the Rams. So that's 79 points to those two offenses. And I mean, for what it's worth, the Chiefs are playing undermanned. They didn't have Pacheco. They're missing Hollywood Brown, and obviously they're missing Rashee Rice, who was one of the better receivers in football. And fortunately, I'm not saying I'm rooting for injuries or anything. Just for the sake of the game, the Bills won't have to play Rashee Rice in the playoffs, but they could, be looking to face Pacheco again and Hollywood Brown. If the Bills match up with the Chiefs, could very well end up, getting the start. So, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see if this defense is able to make some adjustments, and I think Sunday will be a big telltale. But one of my bigger concerns with the Bills all season, and they definitely reared its ugly head on Sunday, was the offensive line. The Bills at one point, now by the end of the game, they may have gotten it in check, but they did not hit Matthew Stafford once in that game. They only had maybe one pressure, which did lead to a throwaway, or an inaccurate throw, but where was, I know Ryan Talbot mentioned it, but Ed Oliver and Jones have been disappointing all season, but where was Greg Rousseau? He was supposed to be one of the best, edge setters in the league, and he's had this great pressure rate, but he was almost on a milk carton much of that game on Sunday. And Von Miller, I would say there was a couple times he got held. But the interesting thing also that I don't think anyone mentioned yet is McDermott, for having such a great record in December. This was a December loss. It's something you don't normally see, and maybe you could just scratch it up as, it could just be an anomaly, but I think you do have to take your concerns, especially with how the defense played. I'll say, let's see how they play versus Detroit. If they can play better against that team, it will give me a lot more confidence. But my confidence level in the defense is waning. And, the defensive line, especially against the run, hasn't been great. But you get to the playoffs, you're going to be playing better offensive lines. And if no one can create pressure, that's going to be even worse for this defense, which is largely zone because we don't blitz a lot. And the times we did blitz, they read them like a book and were able to get some good blocking assignments there.
I actually just had to look the stat up because you mentioned it, Ben. Total quarterback hits for the Bills in the entire game, 3. 2 of them came from Ed Oliver. 1 came from Quentin Jefferson.
So they were at the end of the game, I assume, because I know it was either the
probably.
third or fourth quarter. Someone posted a sheet, and it was all big goose eggs next to the quarterback hits that game.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were only 3 quarterback hits registered the entire game. Only 4 tackles for loss registered the entire game as well. 1 from AJ Epinesa, 1 from Daquan Jones, 1 from Von Miller, and 1 from Matt Milano. I mean, they definitely got rocked by that Rams offense, which definitely is a very potent offense. Definitely going to be one of the more potent offenses that they face throughout the rest of the season. Of course, we have the Lions this week, which is also extremely potent. And then, basically 3 weeks of stagnation in terms of offensive firepower. Twice with the Patriots and once with the Jets, but you still can't overlook them going into the playoffs. But I still think they'll have time to learn from this game, watch the tape, go back and actually make the adjustments that they need to. Because, everybody was pinging me throughout the whole game every time Taron Johnson missed a tackle. And I had to go, I know, I watched him miss the tackle. Thank you.
He had a rough
y'all
game.
need to quit. I mean, I'm like, y'all quit pinging me. I know Taron Johnson's not having a good game, but no one is
Pretty
ever
much
going
no
to
one
have.
on the defense had a good game. We can all
Christian
pretty much
Bedford
agree
had
with
one
that.
Christian Bedford was definitely probably the best, and that was still pretty meh. Like he didn't really get burnt really badly.
He was in position.
But
It was just more or less he didn't make the play when the ball was in the air, or Stafford was just on another level. Like that's the best
That's how I
I've
saw it.
seen Matt Stafford probably since the Super Bowl, honestly. And gosh, if the Rams are getting that Stafford for the rest of the season, yes, they're gonna have to score 40 points. It seems like with their defense to win games, but I mean, if their offense is on a heater like that, they could probably play with anyone in the NFC.
Oh, they can. They absolutely can. I mean, this team is really good. Their defensive front is really good. Young and learning, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, they are
Kobe
coming
Turner
into their
too,
own.
Byron
Kobe
Young.
Turner,
I mean,
yes.
it's not just Fisk and Verse. Like they had some
Exactly.
talent from last draft.
Their
Paul,
linebacking room is really good too. Their secondary is the weak point.
Paul, concerns with the defense after the game?
Yes. I mean, other than the run defense, the run defense looked actually really good.
Yeah, that was actually the more surprising thing. Like we actually semi-stopped
3.3 yards to carry. I'll take that any day of the week.
If you would have told me last week that Kyron Williams and Blake Corum were only going to get 3.3 yards a carry, I would have said, sign me up. But I also wouldn't have signed up for the Rams converting 10 of their first 11 third downs. I think for the game, it was something like
they
11
were 11
for
15.
Oh, 11 for 15. Oh, man.
Wild.
Terrible.
Absolutely wild.
Look, the Bills haven't allowed 40 points in a game since 2021, and that was when Jonathan Taylor just ran all over us at Highmark Stadium.
I remember that.
And so this team doesn't allow 40 points a game. So we're all sitting here with
Very,
like,
very
Well, that you said in the
anomaly.
regular season, right? Because we have allowed it in the postseason.
yeah, we haven't allowed it in the postseason. It
Yeah,
was
no,
since
yes, we
2000.
did. More recently than the Colts game, that Chiefs game that year. 40,
Oh yeah,
42 to
42 to
36.
36.
Yes, sorry.
You're good.
Yes. So in the regular season, we haven't allowed at least 40 points in a game in the regular season since 2021. Good fact check, Ben. So we're all sitting here in the regular season now, like, well, the Bills just allowed 40 points. Is it the end of the world? No, it's not. It's just I feel like the Bills just beat up on weaker opponents, weaker offensive lines, which
That's
you're
and
supposed to do.
that's the thing is, that's what people were saying at the beginning of the season. So I mean, honestly, that may not have been that far from the truth.
So, the Bills entering the season was one of the tougher schedules on paper, but that was before the season was actually played. Now we have games that, games and injuries and wins and losses. Bills' schedule now on paper looks really kind of soft. Like,
Yes.
not like super soft, but it's just kind of soft, and we kind of just managed our way through it. And the Bills just lost 2 one-score games. They've won 3, yes, but the 2 hardest games currently on their schedule, the Ravens and the Texans, the Bills lose those games. The Bills get danced over, gets danced over against the Baltimore Ravens. They lose a close game to the Houston Texans. That was coaching and, bad play calling on offense / defense. Then you go to this game against the Rams where Bobby Babich looked flustered. I don't think he knew what to do when his great defensive backs were just getting torched all night. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to adjust his defense in a way to stop that crazy passing game of Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. He didn't know what to do. Maybe it was Sean McDermott didn't have Kyer Elam in the game where he could switch from zone to man, and that probably would have helped the Bills a lot in this game, honestly. If you as the game went on, you're like, okay, this zone defense isn't working because all it is just Matthew Stafford throwing dimes all game. So maybe the Bills start switching to a little bit more man as the season goes on and see how it works. The Bills have, after the Detroit Lions, they have 3 divisional games. And I think all 3 of those games after the Lions, the Bills can win.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's the time heading up into the playoffs where you start changing some things, start testing some things right before the playoffs. Because as we all just mentioned on the show today, is like you're going to get to the playoffs, everything's just going to switch. Every game gets harder.
Always does.
Every offensive line keeps getting stronger. Every D line that you face gets harder.
Mhm.
So
Always happens
use the
that way.
next 4+ games to start switching some things, start testing some things. So then when you get into a situation where your defensive backs are just getting torched all night, how to adjust against those
Mhm.
against those
You
teams
have
in
to.
those
Yep.
games to start slowing down opposing offenses.
So
Oh, absolutely.
we know the Bills have a challenge on Sunday. Between we kind of touched on it earlier, the running game and the duo that they have in Detroit, as well as the receiving core. What are you guys more worried about, the the short passing attack, or the running game? And I'll kind of take a different angle here. I'm worried about the deep passing game, to be honest with you, because the way I saw our cornerbacks get cooked like barbecue chicken pretty much throughout the game on Sunday, I am deathly afraid to what Williams can potentially do with his speed and quickness, obviously after the catch, but for the deep ball. And if there's any game to activate Kyer Elam, I think it might be Sunday and have them give a shot, to maybe play press man coverage against JMO.
Interesting idea. I actually think they should consider something. You got to try something at this point. So why not? Why not change up how you scheme for the Lions receiving room? Especially, and we're all forgetting Sam Laporta. Man is a freak of a tight end, and they can
Haven't
hit you
faced a
from
great tight
like,
end
oh, I
this
mean, they
year.
get the Lions can hit you at every side. It's going to be a battle, but this is one that if the Bills can come out of this game with the win, that will be huge going forward. They've proven that they could win a potential Super Bowl preview, but there's not really much more to
They
talk about that we've already hit on. But
they held the duo in LA last week to 3.3 yards a carry.
mhm.
If they do that this week,
Well, that'll be
please,
wild.
please do that against Gibbs and Montgomery and just focus on those receivers and how you're going to match up. 3.3
Absolutely.
yards a carry isn't guaranteed for this
Nope.
week. So you're going to have to prepare for both.
It's not
But
guaranteed
if
for
I'm
any
going to
week.
sit here and say what is the bigger focus of Gibbs and Montgomery in the passing attack, I'm probably going to say Gibbs and Montgomery because we only seen the Bills' run defense looked that good just for 1 week. If they could back it up for a second week, I think,
Oh,
okay, the
yeah.
Bills' run game is starting to get stronger, and we're
Mhm.
going to need to start figuring out how to pass defend and make both of them work together to make a really, really dangerous defense heading into the playoffs. Because this defense is dangerous already. We know that the Bills can force turnovers. We know the Bills have one of the better cornerbacks and secondaries in the league. It's just was that run defense. Okay, the run defense looked great
Mhm.
on Sunday
Amazingly, it did.
against the Rams. Do it again. Do it again.
Please do it
Please.
again.
It's
Like,
not guaranteed, but do it again.
nothing's guaranteed. I would definitely say that Jahmyr Gibbs is way better than any of the two we just faced. So if
Oh,
they
yeah.
can do it again, oh man, I think we're going to be in for a very nice showing. But
86 combined points last week between the Lions. I'm sorry, between the
between the
Rams and the
Rams and the
Bills.
Bills,
And
another game of the year that the
This is
Bills
going
lose.
beyond that.
And yeah, and the last time these two teams met on Thanksgiving was arguably a game of the year. Let's get into our game picks tonight.
As a Josh Allen fantasy owner, please give me another game like that. Please let him go
Right?
nuclear one more time. Do that again. Give me another 50 points in the playoffs. Please. I
I
beg.
had a rough week last week. I'm sitting here. I'm sitting
Still
here
hanging
at
on by a thread over Connor.
you are, and I'm just sitting here at 500. Like, hey guys, let me catch up. All right.
No.
Speaking of the Rams, they have a Thursday night game against the 49ers on the road. Do we see another Matthew Stafford legacy game, or the 49ers going to make the Bills look bad and hold them to less than 40 points?
Well, I think this is gonna really be an ultimate mind, what for people, because
It's a
I think the
divisional game.
Niners. Well, that too, but I think the Niners could win by a couple scores here, actually, because the Rams are coming off of a big emotional win, and 49ers, yes, they're missing a lot of people, but they seem like they're kind of kicking into gear, and you could maybe attribute a lot of the Bills game to elements. And as you look at the history, Kyle Shanahan kind of owns the Rams in the regular season,
He
and the
does.
Rams already beat the 49ers this season. I don't see them sweeping them. And the 49ers are still trying to make a push for the playoffs. So I got the Niners in this one.
Yeah, I feel like if the Niners were to win, it'd be a really close game. I mean, I could see the potential in them winning because divisional games are always much more difficult to win, especially the second one when you're trying to avoid the sweep. And with how Kyle Shanahan has historically owned the Rams in the regular season, but I can't see it happening. I mean, this Rams team is way too potent on offense, way too good at where they need to be at the front seven, attacking Brock Purdy, making him uncomfortable in the pocket. And my prediction is Puka Nacua is going to have another wild 100-plus yard game to knock me out of the playoffs round 1 in fantasy. So I'm taking the Rams to win the game. It won't be by much. It'll definitely be a close game because because of how divisional games just are. But I definitely think the Rams are still going to find a way to win with the forward momentum they have after beating one of the best teams in football when they still put up 40-plus points.
Yeah. Emotional game. They scored a lot of points. They used a lot of energy against the Bills. The Rams did, but I still don't think that will stop them against the 49ers. I'm also taking the Rams in this game. I mean, if the Rams do anything for the rest of the season, it's just have Nakua and Cup on the field for all their offensive snaps, because that's just pure gold and it works. And I don't know why they wouldn't just continue just to do that, because they just were amazing on Sunday. All right, Chiefs, Browns. Chiefs again. They're fighting for that one seed. If they continue to win, their black magic just continues. They're also at home
Yeah,
against
but
the
the thing
Browns.
is, the Browns don't have any type of magic. If there's a opposite of black magic, it would be the Cleveland Browns this year. Dustin Hopkins have turned into a pumpkin. The defense isn't the same. I as much as I want to pick an upset here, I gotta go. I gotta go Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't say anything but the Chiefs. As much as I would love for Jameis Winston to just turn into Jameis Winston that you and I both remember at FSU, I cannot see that happening. What's going to happen? This is going to be another one of those games that make you question how are the Chiefs in it and why are they making it close? But they're going to do something crazy and win the game at the end of the day. So I'm taking the Chiefs to win by something that happens last minute or last second, like we saw last week.
I mean, I try to say every week that the Chiefs are finally going to lose a football game. I can't say it again. I mean, the Chiefs just win by the stupidest way. If they were 2 yards further back on Sunday, the ball is going wide left and not hitting the upright and falling in. And then the week prior, they lose on a weird fluky penalty. The Chiefs just for some reason just get the right end of the stick and they just win by the weirdest of ways this year. It's not going to end this week. It's not. Maybe the following week it will against the Steelers or the Houston in a few weeks, but not this week. Give me the Chiefs. All right. The Houston Texans host the Miami Dolphins. With the win and an Indy loss, the Houston Texans will clinch the AFC South.
Interesting. Now I know this isn't a cold weather game, so theoretically you would probably think the Dolphins have a chance, but look at Tua's track record and stats against teams with a winning record. Spoiler alert, it is not good. If you remember, the Rams did not have a winning record when they faced Miami early in the season. And Houston, it seems like they're kind of getting healthy at the right time. I think the defense is good enough to get to Tua often and really frustrate him. And I don't think Miami's defense is good enough to, as much as CJ Stroud has struggled, I don't think he'll struggle much because he'll probably rely on Joe Mixon and then pass it to Dell and Collins. But I got Houston in this one.
Okay. I could see it for sure. The Dolphins definitely aren't the best teams against ones with winning records, but there is a big but. The last time they played against a team from Texas with a winning record, they won on a last-second field goal. Now that might, have been a very different game with very different circumstances, but I feel like it's going to happen again. I don't trust the Texans offense to get the ball moving much against the Dolphins defense. And I really think that the Dolphins, if they could establish the run game with Devon Achane and they could get on the mid-range attack, establish some kind of yak, they're going to run away with the game before it's even got a chance to really get going. So I'm taking the Dolphins. I think they're going to have that one game where they win against a team with a winning record, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, they're back!" when no, they're not back. They just beat up on a bad team with a good record.
You're never beating the allegations every time you pick the
See,
Miami Dolphins.
I knew you'd say that, but I'm going as realistic as possible here.
I don't know if it's realistic though.
Yes, it is.
I'm taking Houston in this game. They want, in every way possible, they want to clinch their division. So I think Houston is going to have a reason to win, and they will just beat up on the Miami Dolphins anyways. All right, Colts going on the road to the Denver Broncos in a loaded 425 slate. There's no 405 games this week, which is weird. All of the 4 o'clock games are slated at 425.
Cool.
Colts trying to get back and try to stay in the playoff race, while Denver's trying to hold for dear life.
It's going to be a good game.
This honestly could end up being the game that decides the final playoff spot in the AFC.
Yep.
And
Potentially.
as much as I have Colts ties and reasons to root for them, I think Bo Nix is going to keep cooking. And I guess then Houston will in turn clinch the division because I picked Denver to win.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I trust Denver going forward. I feel like Bo Nix is going to have the rookie moment when he falls off and completely tanks the Broncos season, because after the Colts, they've got the Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs, and none of those are going to be easy games. If they're going to have a game where they win to stay alive in the playoff race, it's this one. So I am also going to take the Denver Broncos. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a good game, but I think Denver's going to win in the end, and I don't think it's going to be because Bo Nix had a lights out kind of game.
Going Denver as well. They want to hold on to that final playoff spot, and honestly, this probably determines the field of 7 in the AFC if Denver would go on to win. Next game, we have the Eagles and the Steelers also at 425. This one is in competition with CBS because the Bills and Lions are on CBS at 425. The Eagles can clinch the NFC East in 2 ways: a win and a Commander's loss, or a tie and a Commander's loss.
Amazing. All right, Ben, you're gonna make that pick?
Okay. No. I just had a. I was reading something.
Got a moment there.
I did have a moment. I'm picking the Eagles to win, not just because it helps the Bills and seeding scenarios, but Pittsburgh's gonna be out with George Pickens again. And this is the game that you're going to need him. And I just don't see Mike Williams, Calvin Austin, and Van Jefferson making enough plays to be able to win this football game. It might be a game, but at the end, I think Philly's going to find a way like they have been all season. So give me the Eagles.
Yeah, of course, first round of the playoffs, and I would lose George Pickens to an injury.
Yes.
But the thing is they said that he's going to be pretty much up till game time, a game time decision. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they can also clinch a playoff berth this week. You forgot to mention that with a win. So they'll be fighting for their lives against the in-state rival. But if they don't have Pickens and they can't establish any kind of a movement in the passing game with Pat Freiermuth, Calvin Austin, and the rest, they're not going to win. I am taking the Eagles because if you get Saquon Barkley going on the ground, it's game over. It's absolutely game over.
I also am taking Philly in this game. I think they are just overall the better team of the two teams, and the Eagles are home, so they'll have the home field advantage. All right, final game pick. Sunday Night Football, Seattle against the Packers.
Oh boy, that's going to be a fun one.
Real quick, I was just gonna say we should pick the Navy game too for a bonus one since there's no other college football games this week. But let me do my Packers pick first, and I believe I picked the Packers last week, which ended up barely burning me. But I'm gonna ride them again. I still think they're the better team than the Seahawks, even though the Seahawks have kind of found some life after that little midseason skid. They've been playing some good football recently, so I have to give them credit. But I still got the Packers.
Yeah. I actually, for that game, I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting game. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. They're playing in Seattle. I definitely don't think that's going to bode as well for the Packers being on the road. I think to that end, I am going to take the Seahawks. I think they're going to get Charbonnet moving pretty early, unless Kenneth Walker comes back. I don't know exactly what the injury is for him, but maybe he can come back. If not, then I think they will do exactly what they did to Arizona, and they'll establish the run game with Zach Charbonnet relatively quickly. It's all on Geno, though, to hit the open man, hit DK Metcalf or JSN downfield, and I think they can win the game, so I'm definitely going to take Seattle.
Interesting.
I'm going to take Green Bay because,
Thank you.
I just feel like Green Bay is on the upward trend. I think they're trying to stay alive, if possible, in the wild card race. Maybe in some way get back into the NFC North, but I think Green Bay wants to win this game. And, Seattle probably wants to win this game too, is to stay alive in the NFC West. But I think Green Bay pulls out a close victory. Army Navy for the 125th time. Navy winning 62 of these games, but Army has won the last 2. They are also, I believe, still ranked.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Army or Navy?
And yes, I know there was that massive streak where it seemed like just Army couldn't beat Navy, and it seems like the tides have kind of turned a little bit because out of the last 8 matchups, Army has won 6 of them. And I think it's going to be 7 out of 9 because they just won their conference. I love their quarterback. Is it Carson Daly, something like that. He's just like basically the Taysom Hill of college football, and that Army team's a lot.
Ben's mic has officially died because it does not like his. It doesn't like the bias here against the Army. Clearly, it's still died on him, but
Ben.
This is hilarious.
No, Ben.
Your
mic's
okay, how about now? How about
oh,
now?
you're good.
Your
okay,
mic.
okay.
Yeah.
It has agreed with you.
Army's
Army's going to win.
Okay, so did you hear that monologue? Army's won
Kinda.
6 out of 8. So
we heard that, but then the Navy said no.
Well, so Navy had a big winning streak, and now Army's kind of at the upper hand recently. I really like this Army quarterback. He kind of reminds me of the Taysom Hill of college football. He had something like 30 rushing touchdowns this season or something ridiculous like that. Bryson Daly. This is going to be a fun game, and this Army team's a lot of fun. They just won the American Conference this past week, and they may have been in the college football playoff if they didn't get rocked so hard by Notre Dame, but still a fantastic season by the Black Knights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they're definitely going to win the game. I'm not at all biased or anything, but
who do you like better, the Army or Navy? Just
well,
if you
Army
have
was
somebody
always.
I like
random...
Navy better.
Well,
My grandfather
Army, it was always
in the Navy,
Army.
so I have personal.
So was mine.
Well, I have personal.
So you're going
personal
Army.
reasons to root for the Navy, but I think Army wins the game because I'm trying not to be biased.
Yeah, I mean, I still.
I think
Army's just better anyway. But
I'm going to go Army as well because I think Army's the better team.
Yep.
And it's a sweep. That means Navy wins. But anyways.
Probably. Place your bets.
Place your bets.
But Army's the better team. I mean, Ben, you're making this feel like we're not going to see a 13-10 Army-Navy game and we're just sleeping our way through the game. I feel like you're hyping this game for us to see a 38 finish.
I think it's going to be like 30-27 or something like that. I think there's going to be lots of offense on both sides, not a lot of defense, but get ready for the Bryson Daly show is all I got to say. But that should wrap up tonight's show.
It will indeed.
It seems like we have a great Sunday slate. Last week, the 1 o'clock games are kind of a little boring, and even the Sunday night game wasn't that great. But it seems like from Thursday night football, besides the Monday night game, which should be a little boring, I believe that's the Browns Chiefs, but the rest of Sunday's slate is phenomenal in my opinion. So I think we're in for a great week. And, hopefully the Bills can pull it out and they can get some help from maybe Cleveland or Philadelphia. But that should wrap up the show tonight. If you guys
Ready
didn't have
for
any other
Overreaction
thoughts,
Oh yeah.
I'm ready for Overreaction Monday and Tuesday when
Aren't
we
we
have our
all?
podcast. But other than that, we'll be here same time, same place next week.
Mhm.
And go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.